The trust triggers psychology behind why we believe some people instantly the puzzle of instant trust. Why is it that within just a few seconds of meeting someone, your brain whispers either yes, this person feels safe, or be careful, something's off. You don't ask for their resume. You don't run a background check. And yet, in that split second, you decide whether to open up or to hold back. This is the puzzle of instant trust. Our ancestors relied on it for survival. A wrong judgment could mean danger from a stranger or safety in a new ally. Even today, in boardrooms, dating apps, job interviews, or chance encounters, this ancient survival mechanism is still running quietly in the background, shaping who we believe, who we follow, and even who we buy from. Psychologists call this thin slicing the brain's ability to make rapid decisions with very limited information. It's not always accurate, but it's powerful. Think about the last time you met someone and instantly clicked. Couldn't explain why, but you just knew they were trustworthy. That gut feeling. It wasn't magic, it was psychology. In this video, we'll unlock the hidden triggers that make us trust some people immediately while doubting others. From the way someone looks, to the tone of their voice, to the subtle signals in their body language, you'll discover the fascinating science of why trust is built in seconds, and how it can last a lifetime, or be shattered just as quickly.
Chapter 1. The Mystery of Instant Trust. How we make snap judgments in seconds. The science of first impressions. Picture this. You're at a dinner party, surrounded by people you've never met before. A new guest walks in. Within a couple of seconds, without a word exchanged, you've already formed an opinion. Something inside you says, I like this person, or I should be cautious. You don't have facts. You don't have history. And yet, your mind has made a judgment. This is one of the most fascinating mysteries of human psychology. The way we build trust in a matter of seconds. Think about it. Every day we meet strangers. The barista who makes your coffee. The colleague you're introduced to at work. The neighbor who waves as you pass by. In each case, your brain runs a quick scan and delivers a verdict. Trustworthy or untrustworthy. And here's the striking part. These judgments feel so natural that we rarely stop to question them. In this chapter, we'll explore why this happens, what science says about it, and how you can use this understanding to your advantage. By the end, you'll see that these snap judgments are not random guesses but finely tuned survival tools, tools that still shape our lives today. The power of thin slicing. Psychologists use a term called thin slicing. Simply put, it means making quick judgments based on very limited information. Imagine taking a thin slice of a cake, just a small piece, yet somehow being able to guess the flavor of the entire cake. That's what your brain does with people. From a brief look, a handshake, or a short hello, it draws powerful conclusions. In the early 2000s, researchers Nalini Ambady and Robert Rosenthal conducted a fascinating study. They showed students silent, 2-second video clips of teachers in classrooms. The students had never met these teachers before. Yet, from just a 2-second clip, they rated the teacher's warmth, confidence, and competence. Later, those ratings matched almost perfectly with what students who had studied with those teachers all semester reported. 2 seconds was enough. This shows us that first impressions are not only fast, they can also be surprisingly accurate. First impressions in everyday life. We see this everywhere. When you meet someone for the first time, a firm handshake makes you feel they are confident. Avoiding eye contact makes you suspicious. A warm smile puts you at ease. These reactions are not conscious decisions. They are automatic. Your brain processes body language, tone, and facial expressions in milliseconds, faster than you can even form a thought. Think of a job interview. The candidate might spend weeks preparing answers. But research shows interviewers often decide within the first minute whether they like a candidate or not. The rest of the interview is often just the interviewer looking for evidence to support that first impression. Now you might say, but isn't that unfair? Yes, it can be. That's why understanding the psychology of first impressions is so important. If we can recognize these automatic processes, we can both manage the impressions we give and be more mindful of the judgments we make. The survival code in our brains. Why does this happen? The answer lies deep in human history. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors faced a daily question. Friend or foe? When a stranger appeared at the edge of your camp, you didn't have time for lengthy conversations. You had to decide quickly. Was this person going to share food or steal it? Was he going to help fight predators or become a threat himself? Quick trust judgments were a matter of life and death. Those who made better snap decisions survived and passed on their instincts. Those who didn't make it. This ancient survival code is still alive in us. Today, the stakes may not always be life or death, but your brain reacts as if they are. Meeting a new boss, going on a first date, choosing who to sit next to on a plane, your brain is running the same ancient program. Safe or unsafe, trust or don't trust. The face factor. One of the most powerful trust signals comes from the face. Studies show that people often decide whether someone looks trustworthy within milliseconds of seeing their face. In 2008, researchers at Princeton University asked participants to judge photos of strangers on trustworthiness. The participants saw each face for just a fraction of a second. Yet, their judgments were consistent, and they matched what other participants said even when given more time. Here's the fascinating part. Certain facial features, like softer jawlines, rounder eyes, and a natural smile, are subconsciously associated with trust. Meanwhile, sharper angles and a more tense expression can trigger caution. This doesn't mean those features really make someone trustworthy or not. It only shows how our brains use shortcuts. These shortcuts are often helpful but sometimes misleading. That's why con artists and scammers often rely on looking friendly and approachable. They know it gets past our defenses. The role of voice and tone. It's not just faces. The way someone speaks carries enormous weight. Think about the last time you heard a public speaker who instantly commanded the room. Maybe their words weren't extraordinary, but their tone, calm, steady, confident, pulled you in. Compare that with a shaky, nervous voice. Even if the content is solid, we instinctively feel less trust. Research shows that deeper, slower voices are often rated as more trustworthy. That's one reason why many leaders, from presidents to CEOs, train their voices. But it's not only about pitch. Warmth, rhythm, and even pauses matter. A pause, used well, signals confidence. Too many fillers, signal doubt. Micro moments that matter. Let's bring this closer to daily life. Imagine two scenarios. You walk into a shop, and the clerk looks up, makes eye contact and says, "Good morning. How can I help you today?" You walk into another shop. The clerk keeps looking at their phone and mutters, "Yeah, both shops may sell the exact same product. But which one are you more likely to buy from? Which clerk would you trust if something went wrong with your purchase?" That's the mystery of instant trust at work. Small signals, eye contact, tone, posture, combine to create a powerful impression. Practical application. So what can you do with this knowledge? Be aware of your first signals. Remember, people decide about you in seconds. Pay attention to your posture, handshake, and eye contact. These simple things speak louder than words. Practice warmth and confidence. You don't need to pretend. A genuine smile, an open stance, and calm voice tone go a long way. Slow down your reactions. When meeting someone new, don't let your first impression control everything. Remind yourself, this is my brain's survival code at work. Give people a chance before locking them into your judgment. Build trust intentionally. In business, relationships, or leadership, use first impressions as an opportunity. Prepare your environment, your look, and your opening words with care. Imagine a courtroom. A jury sits quietly, waiting for the trial to begin. The defendant walks in. He's neatly dressed, his posture is straight, and he nods politely to the jury. Instantly, half the jury feels a little more sympathetic. Now imagine the same man enters slouched, with a frown, avoiding eye contact. Nothing about his guilt or innocence has changed, but the jury's first impression has. This is not fiction. It's why lawyers carefully coach their clients on how to enter a courtroom. They know the psychology of first impressions is powerful, and once formed, it shapes the entire trial. Conclusion. We've seen that trust can spark in seconds. It's shaped by ancient survival instincts, faces, voices, and subtle cues that most of us aren't even aware of. First impressions may not always be fair, but they are real, and they shape the way we connect, hire, vote, and even fall in love. As you move forward, remember this: your brain is always scanning for trust signals, whether you like it or not. The good news? Once you understand these signals, you can manage them both in how you present yourself and in how you judge others. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into the roots of this behavior. We'll explore why trust was not just useful but essential for human survival, and how those ancient instincts still guide us in the modern world. Chapter 2. Trust as a Survival Tool. Evolutionary Psychology of Trust. How tribes and groups depended on quick trust decisions. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself thousands of years ago. You are not sitting in a cafe or an office. You are standing in the middle of a forest, your tribe scattered around you, watching the shadows move. Every rustle of leaves could mean food or danger. A stranger approaches. You have seconds to decide. Do I welcome this person into the circle, or do I raise my spear? That decision could mean life or death. And that, my friend, is where the psychology of trust was born. In this chapter, we're going to explore why trust is not just a social preference. It's a survival instinct. You'll see how tribes depended on rapid judgments of trust, how cooperation allowed humans to dominate a dangerous world, and why these ancient instincts are still running inside us today, influencing everything from friendships to workplace dynamics. By the end of this chapter, you'll understand why trust is not optional for humans. It's a built-in survival tool that has shaped who we are as a species. The evolutionary roots of trust. Human beings are fragile compared to many other creatures. We don't have sharp claws like tigers or the speed of antelopes. What made us survive and thrive was our ability to work together. And working together required trust. Our ancestors lived in small groups or tribes. Within these tribes, survival depended on cooperation. Hunting together to bring down large animals. Sharing food when resources were scarce. Protecting the group from predators or rival tribes. But cooperation carried a risk. What if someone took the food but didn't share later? What if someone pretended to be loyal but abandoned the group in danger? This constant risk forced humans to develop quick trust signals. We had to detect, almost instantly, who could be relied upon and who might betray us. The friend or foe dilemma. Let's consider this from an evolutionary perspective. When a stranger approached a tribe, there were two possible mistakes. Trusting the wrong person. If you welcomed someone who turned out to be violent or selfish, the entire tribe could suffer. Distrusting the right person. If you rejected someone who could have been a strong ally, you missed a valuable opportunity. The cost of the first mistake, trusting the wrong person, was often higher. Could lead to theft, injury, or even death. That's why our brains develop to be cautious, scanning for any signal of danger. But at the same time, tribes that learned to take calculated risks of trust had an advantage. They could grow larger, pool resources, and outcompete smaller, isolated groups. The biology of trust. Interestingly, this survival mechanism is not just cultural, it's wired into our biology. When we trust someone, our brain releases oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, creates feelings of warmth and safety. This chemical reward encouraged our ancestors to stay connected, to cooperate, and to share. Think about mothers and infants. When a baby gazes at their mother, oxytocin flows in both, deepening the bond. The same mechanism extended to tribes. Trust wasn't just an idea, it was a chemical system that glued people together. Trust in tribal life. A case study from anthropology. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies today, such as the Hadza in Tanzania, offer a window into how our ancestors lived. In these tribes, food is shared communally. A successful hunter doesn't eat alone. The meat is divided across the group. This might sound unfair to the hunter, but here's the psychology. Sharing builds trust, and trust builds security. Tomorrow, if that hunter fails, others will share with him. It's an insurance system powered by trust. If someone refuses to share repeatedly, the tribe responds with social pressure. Gossip, disapproval, or even exclusion. In the harsh wilderness, being excluded meant almost certain death. So trust was not optional. It was the foundation of survival. The fire circle, where trust was built. Imagine the scene. Night falls, predators lurk in the darkness, and your tribe gathers around the fire. The fire provides warmth, but more importantly, it provides connection. Stories are told, food is shared, wounds are tended. Around the fire, people revealed their intentions and built reputations. If someone consistently showed courage, generosity, or honesty, their status grew. People trusted them more deeply. The fire circle was the original social network, where trust was built and maintained. In many ways, our modern boardrooms, dinner tables, and even online groups still serve the same purpose. Quick trust decisions in action. Let me give you a simple thought experiment. You're walking with your tribe when a stranger approaches holding food. He looks calm, smiles, and lowers his weapon. Do you take the food? Most likely, yes. The signals, open body language, gift offering, calm demeanor trigger trust. Now imagine a different scenario. The stranger avoids eye contact, grips his weapon tightly, and moves quickly toward you. Your tribe instantly prepares for conflict. The signals have triggered distrust. This was life and death psychology. And here's the key. The same psychology is still inside us today. Modern echoes of ancient trust. Even though we live in cities now, the survival tool of quick trust hasn't disappeared. It has simply shifted into new contexts. In job interviews, we decide within minutes if someone fits. On dating apps, a picture and a few words decide whether we swipe left or right. In politics, a leader's posture and tone on TV shape our trust more than their policies. These are modern fire circles. Different setting, same psychology. So, how can you use this evolutionary understanding of trust in your life today? Recognize the instinct. When you instantly trust or distrust someone, remember, this is your survival brain at work. Ask yourself, is this reaction based on real evidence or just ancient wiring? Use signals wisely. Just as tribes used body language and generosity, you can signal trust in small ways. Show openness. Make eye contact. Share your time or resources. These small actions echo thousands of years of human behavior. Build your circle. Just like tribes relied on trusted members, build your modern tribe, friends, colleagues, family through consistent reliability. Be the person others can count on. Avoid misjudgment. Our survival brain often errs on the side of caution. But in today's world, rejecting trustworthy people can mean missed opportunities. Practice slowing down before finalizing judgments. Picture a tribe on the African plains 40,000 years ago. They've just finished a successful hunt, and the meat is being divided. One man, known for hoarding food in the past, takes a larger share and slips away. The tribe notices. That night, around the fire, whispers spread. By morning, trust in him has eroded. He is no longer invited to join hunts. Within weeks, he drifts to the edge of the tribe, vulnerable, exposed, and alone. Now picture another man. He gives up part of his share to a sick elder. The tribe notices that too. By morning, his status has risen. People know they can depend on him. In the next hunt, he leads. These stories happened countless times in human history. They shaped the wiring of our brains. They taught us that survival is not about strength alone. It's about trust. Trust was not a luxury for our ancestors. It was the difference between life and death. Tribes that learned to build it survived. Those that didn't vanished. Today, the stakes may not always be survival in the wild, but the psychology remains the same. Trust still decides who we let into our lives, who we follow, who we work with, and who we love. As we move into the next chapter, we'll zoom in on one of the most powerful tools of instant trust, the human face. Why is it that a simple smile, a pair of kind eyes, or the tiniest facial expression can make us feel safe or put us on guard? The answer lies in the fascinating science of the face factor. Chapter 3, the face factor. Facial expressions, microsignals, and their hidden impact. Why a smile can change everything. The silent language of the face. Imagine this, you walk into a room full of strangers. Nobody has spoken a word yet. Still, your eyes instantly scan the crowd, and your mind begins to whisper judgments. That woman looks kind. That man seems serious. That guy in the corner, something about him feels off. Before a single conversation begins, you've already formed an emotional map of the room. How did you do that? Through faces. Our faces are the most powerful social billboards we carry. They silently broadcast emotions, intentions, and even trustworthiness. In fact, research shows we decide whether we trust someone within 100 milliseconds of seeing their face. That's faster than the blink of an eye. Why does this matter? Because trust, the glue that holds relationships, business, and societies together, often begins with what we read in someone's expression. One smile, one raised eyebrow, or one micro-twitch of the lips can shift us toward trust or suspicion. In this chapter, we'll explore why faces carry such weight in human psychology, how micro-expressions can reveal hidden truths, and why something as simple as a smile can change the course of history or your next job interview. The science and story of faces, the evolutionary power of the face. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors didn't have language as we know it today. Their survival depended on quickly reading each other's intentions. Was that stranger approaching with friendship or with a spear? The face became a vital survival tool. A frown could signal danger. A relaxed expression could mean safety. Over generations, humans evolved an extraordinary sensitivity to tiny changes in facial muscles. Neuroscientists have discovered specialized brain areas, like the fusiform face area, FFA, that are designed just to process faces. Your brain treats faces as more important than almost any other visual input. That's why we see faces in clouds, tree bark, or the front of cars. Faces were the first trust signals of humanity. And even in our modern world, full of contracts, legal systems, and digital communication, our instincts still rely on that ancient tool. The microsignals we can't hide. A fascinating discovery in psychology is the study of microexpressions, those tiny, involuntary facial movements that flash for a fraction of a second before we can consciously control them. For example, a politician might be smiling on stage, but for a split second, a flicker of anger shows in the eyes. A partner might say, "I'm fine," but a microexpression of sadness betrays their true feelings. Dr. Paul Ekman, a pioneer in this field, found that these microsignals are universal. Across cultures, from tribes in Papua New Guinea to business leaders in New York, the same fleeting facial cues reveal emotions like happiness, fear, anger, disgust, and contempt. What's remarkable is that our subconscious often picks up these signals even if we don't notice them consciously. That's why you might feel uneasy around someone but can't explain why. Your brain read a hidden signal before you could. Why a smile changes everything. Smiles are the superstar of trust building. But here's the catch. Not all smiles are equal. The genuine smile, known as the Duchenne smile, involves not just the lips but also the eyes. When someone truly feels joy, little wrinkles, crow's feet, appear around the eyes. The fake smile involves only the mouth. The eyes stay cold. We instinctively sense when a smile doesn't match the emotion. Think of your own experiences. Have you ever met someone whose smile instantly made you feel welcome? Or someone whose smile seemed forced, making you back away? Studies show that people who smile genuinely are rated as more trustworthy, approachable, and even more competent. In job interviews, candidates who use authentic smiles are more likely to be hired. In dating, smiles increase attractiveness. In sales, smiles boost conversions. It's not just psychology, it's biology. When we see a genuine smile, our brain releases feel-good chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin, which literally make us feel safer and more connected. Storytelling moment. The power of a smile in history. Let me take you back to 1939. Europe was on the brink of war. Winston Churchill was trying to rally support in Parliament. He was famous for his serious speeches, but in smaller settings, Churchill often used humor and a warm smile to disarm opponents. One political opponent later wrote in his diary, "It was impossible to hold anger against him when he smiled. That face could turn enemies into reluctant friends." It wasn't Churchill's policies alone that won trust. It was his face. his expressions, his ability to balance sternness with warmth. That silent language of the face helped him lead a nation through crisis. Case study, the job interview experiment. In a fascinating study, researchers filmed job interviews and later showed silent clips, only a few seconds long, to a group of observers. Even without hearing a single word, observers could accurately predict who would be hired. How? By reading faces. Candidates who showed genuine warmth and positive expressions were far more likely to be trusted and chosen. This tells us something powerful. Your face often speaks louder than your words. How readers can use the face factor. So, how can you use this knowledge in your own life? Practice genuine smiling. Don't fake it till you make it. Instead, think of something that truly brings you joy before entering a meeting or conversation. That feeling will naturally activate your eyes and mouth. Notice microsignals in others. Next time you're speaking with someone, watch for tiny flashes in their face. Do their eyes momentarily narrow in anger? Do their lips tighten when they say they're okay? These signals often tell the real story. Mirror for connection. Subtly mirroring someone's facial expressions can build rapport. If they smile, return the smile. If they look concerned, soften your face to show empathy. Control your resting face. People judge us even when we're not talking. Be aware of your neutral face. Does it look closed off or approachable? Practice a relaxed, open expression. Everyday trust in action. Picture Sarah, a young teacher meeting her new class of third graders. On the first day, she doesn't dive into rules or tests. Instead, she greets each child with a warm smile, making eye contact. Within minutes, the children relax. They laugh, ask questions, and feel safe. It wasn't the curriculum that built trust. It was Sarah's face, her genuine expressions of care. Parents later say, "Our kids love her from day one." This is the face factor in real life. Whether in classrooms, workplaces, or friendships, our expressions build bridges long before our words do. The face as the first gateway to trust. The human face is more than skin, muscles, and bone. It is the original trust detector. From evolutionary survival to modern business deals, faces silently guide us toward who feels safe and who doesn't. A genuine smile can open doors. Microexpressions can reveal hidden truths, and a single look can shape the course of a relationship. As you move through life, remember this: your face is your first story. Before you speak a word, you are already communicating trust or distrust. In the next chapter, we'll move beyond the face to the voice, the sound of trust. Just as our eyes read faces, our ears listen for tones, rhythms, and patterns that tell us who we can believe. Chapter 4, The Voice of Trust. Tone, pitch, and rhythm in building credibility. Why some voices feel instantly reliable. The sound that shapes belief. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine you're listening to someone on the phone. You can't see their face, you don't know what they look like, but within seconds you already feel something about them. Do they sound calm, nervous, confident, warm? We often underestimate it, but the human voice is one of the most powerful trust signals we have. Long before text messages and emails, voices carried meaning. A soothing voice could comfort a baby. A commanding voice could lead a tribe into battle. A shaky voice could reveal fear or uncertainty. Even today, when we hear someone speak, our brain makes lightning-fast decisions. Do I trust this person? Do they sound like they know what they're talking about? Do I want to keep listening or tune out? This chapter is about that hidden power. We'll explore why tone, pitch, and rhythm can build or break credibility. We'll dive into real-world examples, scientific research, and practical ways you can use your voice to inspire trust instantly. Main body, the psychology of voices. Why voices matter more than words. Have you ever noticed how sometimes it's not what someone says, but how they say it that stays with you? Think about Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. If the exact same words had been read in a flat, lifeless tone, history might have forgotten them. But his rising rhythm, deep resonance, and passionate delivery made those words immortal. Psychologists have found that in human communication, tone of voice carries more weight than actual words. One famous study by Dr. Albert Mehrabian suggested that when people talk about feelings or attitudes, Only 7% of meaning comes from words, 38% from tone of voice, and 55% from body language. This doesn't mean words don't matter, they do, but it shows us how much trust is anchored in sound. Tone, the emotional color of voice. Tone is the emotional flavor we add to our words. A warm, steady tone makes us feel safe. A sharp, harsh tone makes us defensive. A flat, monotone voice makes us lose interest. For example, imagine a doctor telling you, "Everything looks fine." If the tone is calm and reassuring, you'll believe it. But if the same doctor says those words with a rushed or anxious tone, you'll walk out worried, even though the message didn't change. Our brains are tuned to catch tone instantly. It's a survival instinct. Babies respond to tone long before they understand language. That wiring never leaves us. Pitch, high, low, and the trust effect. Pitch refers to how high or low a voice sounds. In general, deeper voices are often perceived as more trustworthy, authoritative, and confident. That's why many leaders, broadcasters, and even actors with low-pitched voices tend to capture attention. But there's a balance. A voice that's too low can feel intimidating, while a voice that's too high may seem anxious. The sweet spot is a natural, grounded pitch, one that feels steady and controlled. Interestingly, research from Duke University found that CEOs with deeper voices tended to run larger companies and earned higher salaries. Their voice quite literally influenced how much people trusted their leadership. Rhythm, the music of speaking. The way we pace our speech, our rhythm, also shapes trust. Fast, rushed speech can sound nervous, like the speaker is hiding something. Slow, deliberate speech can feel thoughtful and credible, but if it's too slow, people get bored. Well-placed pauses can be incredibly powerful, giving listeners time to absorb ideas and making the speaker seem confident. Think of Barack Obama. One of his strongest communication tools was rhythm. He used deliberate pacing and pauses to let his words land. Each pause gave the audience space to reflect, and that built trust. Storytelling moment. The emergency call. Picture this. A 911 operator answers a frantic call. The caller is panicked, words tumbling out. The operator, however, speaks with a calm, steady tone. Not too fast, not too slow. Each word is measured. Even though the caller doesn't know this operator personally, the voice itself becomes a lifeline. The calm rhythm tells the caller, "You're safe. Help is on the way." This is the voice of trust in action, where tone, pitch, and rhythm carry more weight than the actual instructions. When the voice betrays us, of course, voices can also betray us. A trembling tone can reveal fear. Rising pitch at the end of statements can make us sound uncertain, as if asking a question rather than giving an answer. Monotone delivery can suggest boredom or lack of confidence. Think about job interviews. Many candidates rehearse their answers but forget their delivery. A shaky voice or rushed words can undo hours of preparation. Employers often report they just didn't feel confident about a candidate, even when the words were correct. Case study: the call center experiment. A study in customer service call centers revealed something fascinating. Callers rated their satisfaction not only on problem solving but heavily on voice tone. Representatives who used warmer tones and varied rhythms got higher trust scores, even when the actual solution took longer. Those who sounded robotic or rushed were rated poorly, even if they solved the problem quickly. This shows us that credibility isn't just about content. It's about the music of how it's delivered. Practical application. How you can use the voice of trust. Now let's make this personal. How can you use your voice to build trust in everyday life? Find your natural pitch. Record yourself speaking and notice your pitch. If it rises at the end of every sentence, practice finishing with a steady downward pitch to sound more confident. Warmth before authority. People trust warmth before competence. Start conversations with a friendly, relaxed tone before shifting into serious topics. Master the pause. Silence can be powerful. Instead of filling space with pause, it makes you sound composed and thoughtful. Mirror the listener. If someone speaks softly, lower your tone. If they're energetic, add more rhythm. Subtle mirroring creates connection. Practice emotional alignment. Make sure your tone matches your words. Saying, I'm excited to be here in a flat voice kills credibility. Let your tone carry the emotion. The teacher's voice. A high school teacher once told me, I don't win trust with lesson plans. I win it with my voice. He explained that on the first day of class, he never shouts to control the room. Instead, he lowers his voice. Students lean in to hear him. His calm, steady tone tells them he's in control without saying a word. By the end of the year, his students often say, we learned so much because we always listened to him. It wasn't just the content. It was the voice of trust, the soundtrack of credibility. Voices are more than sound waves, they're trust signals. Tone colors our emotions, pitch shapes authority, and rhythm guides attention. Together, they form the soundtrack of credibility. The next time you speak, whether in a meeting, a date, or a casual chat, remember, your voice is telling a story about you before your words are even understood. And as we move to the next chapter, we'll step beyond sound and sight into something deeper, the power of body language. If faces and voices are the gateways to trust, body language is the bridge that either holds or breaks it. Chapter 5, Body Language and Silent Signals. Posture, gestures, and eye contact, the subconscious power of mirroring. The words we never say. Picture this, you're at a party standing in a circle of people. One person is telling a story. You notice that as the storyteller leans in, others lean in too. When she laughs, the group laughs with her. When she folds her arms, a few others copy without realizing it. What's happening here? A conversation beyond words. Every day we're speaking two languages at once, the language of words and the language of the body. And here's the surprising truth. People often believe the body more than the words. If someone says, I'm fine, but their shoulders slump and their eyes drop, you trust the body, not the sentence. This chapter is about that silent language. We'll explore how posture, gestures, and eye contact shape trust, and why mirroring, copying someone's movements without even noticing, can create a powerful subconscious bond. The science of silent signals. The body as a billboard. Think of the human body as a walking billboard. It constantly broadcasts messages. Confidence, fear, openness, defensiveness. Unlike words, which we can carefully edit, body language is harder to control. That's why people trust it more. Psychologists often say, the body doesn't lie. Even trained actors sometimes reveal true emotions in tiny physical slips. A stiff hand, a twitch of the eye, a shift of the foot. Our ancestors depended on reading these signals for survival, and our brains still do. Posture, the architecture of confidence. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to command a room without speaking? Often it's posture. Open posture, standing tall, shoulders back, arms relaxed, signals confidence and safety. Closed posture, crossed arms, hunched shoulders, avoiding eye contact, signals defensiveness or insecurity. Amy Cuddy, a social psychologist, made headlines with her research on power posing. She argued that standing in expansive positions, even for 2 minutes, could boost feelings of confidence and even influence how others perceive you. While later studies debated the biological effects, the social truth remains. Posture shapes how others judge us almost instantly. When your body takes up space, people see you as more credible. When you shrink into yourself, people sense uncertainty. Gestures, the hands that speak. Our hands are storytellers. They emphasize, they underline, they reveal emotion. Think about a politician giving a speech. Watch their hands. Open palms suggest honesty and transparency. Pointing fingers can feel aggressive. Steepling fingers, fingertips touching, palms apart, often signal confidence and control. Gestures don't just decorate speech, they direct trust. In experiments, speakers who used expressive, congruent hand gestures were rated as more persuasive and trustworthy than those who kept their hands still. Interestingly, we're also wired to notice inconsistencies. If someone says, I'm excited to be here, but their hands stay stiff at their sides, the mismatch creates doubt. Eye contact, windows to trust. If the body is a billboard, the eyes are the headline. Eye contact is one of the most powerful trust cues we have. Too little eye contact and you seem shifty or unengaged. Too much and you feel intimidating or intrusive. The sweet spot, intermittent, natural eye contact. Long enough to show attention, short enough to feel comfortable. In Western cultures, maintaining eye contact signals honesty and respect. In fact, research shows that people who make more eye contact during conversations are rated as more credible, likable, and persuasive. But there's nuance. A job candidate who stares fixedly at the interviewer may come across as intense or robotic. A speaker who gently shifts their gaze around the room creates connection with everyone. The subconscious power of mirroring. Now let's talk about one of the most fascinating silent signals, mirroring. Mirroring happens when two people unconsciously copy each other's body language. One person crosses their legs, the other does too. One leans forward, the other follows. This isn't mimicry, it's a subconscious rhythm of connection. Mirroring is rooted in mirror neurons, special brain cells that activate both when we perform an action and when we watch someone else perform it. These neurons create empathy. When we mirror others, we're saying, without words, I'm like you. You're safe with me. Salespeople, therapists, and great leaders often use mirroring naturally. They subtly adopt the posture, gestures, or tone of the other person. Done authentically, it builds trust. Done artificially, it feels manipulative. Storytelling moment, negotiating peace. In the 1970s, during tense peace negotiations, psychologists noticed something fascinating. When opposing leaders began to mirror each other's body language, sitting the same way, leaning in at the same time, the atmosphere shifted. Hostility softened into dialogue. Later transcripts showed that trust started to grow at the very moment their bodies aligned. The silent signals paved the way for spoken agreements. This is the quiet power of mirroring. It doesn't win wars on its own, but it can open the door to peace. When body language betrays words, body language can also expose lies or insecurity. A manager says, "We're confident about the company's future," while nervously tapping their foot. A partner says, "I'm not upset," while their arms stay crossed tightly. A politician declares, "I care about the people," while avoiding direct eye contact. We may not consciously analyze these moments, but we feel them. Something doesn't add up, and trust weakens. Case study, the jury room. In courtroom studies, jurors admitted that a witness's body language strongly affected credibility. Even when testimony was the same, witnesses who sat upright, used natural hand gestures, and maintained steady eye contact were rated as more believable than those who slouched or fidgeted. This has massive implications. Sometimes, trust isn't about truth, it's about signals. Practical application. How you can use silent signals. Here's how you can apply the science of body language in your daily life. Check your posture. Before entering a meeting or social setting, take a deep breath, roll your shoulders back, and stand tall. You'll look confident even if you feel nervous. Use open gestures. Show your palms when speaking. Keep your arms uncrossed. Use your hands to emphasize points, but don't overdo it. Balance eye contact. Aim for about 60 to 70% eye contact during conversations. Break it occasionally to avoid staring. Mirror naturally. If someone leans in, gently lean in too. If they speak with calm gestures, slow yours down. Keep it subtle, it should feel like connection, not copying. Notice others. Pay attention to mismatches. Do someone's words and body language align? If not, their body is likely telling the real story. The first date test. A young man once told me about his first date. We sat across the table, and I noticed every time I leaned in, she leaned in too. When I smiled, she smiled. By the end of dinner, it felt like we'd known each other forever. He didn't know it then, but they were mirroring. Their bodies were silently saying, "We connect. We trust." Years later, they married. Sometimes the body tells the love story before the words do. The silent bridge of trust. Words build understanding, but body language builds belief. Posture signals confidence. Gestures add credibility. Eye contact shows honesty, and mirroring creates subconscious connection. Trust is not only spoken, it's performed. Every shrug, smile, and glance is part of the script. As you move forward, remember this. People may forget what you said, but they will rarely forget how your presence made them feel. And much of that feeling comes from silent signals. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into another invisible but powerful factor, the role of emotions. Because beyond faces, voices, and bodies, it's emotions that truly cement human trust. Chapter 6. Symbols of Authority. Uniforms, titles, and status symbols. Why authority shortcuts influence trust. The shortcut of power. Picture this: you walk into a hospital. A doctor in a crisp white coat approaches. Instantly, even before they speak, you feel a sense of credibility. You trust their knowledge. You follow their instructions. Or imagine a police officer, a pilot, or a CEO walking into a room. Their presence alone commands attention. Why? Because humans are wired to respond to symbols of authority. In psychology, these are called authority shortcuts. Our brains are designed to quickly decide who is credible and trustworthy, especially in high-stakes situations. Symbols like uniforms, titles, and status cues act as mental shortcuts that tell us, this person knows what they're doing. I can rely on them. In this chapter, we'll explore the hidden power of authority symbols, why they work, and how understanding them can improve your ability to read people and build trust yourself. The psychology of authority. Why humans obey symbols. From an evolutionary perspective, obeying authority often meant survival. Imagine a tribal community. The leader knows where to hunt, when to flee from predators, and how to allocate food. Trusting that authority increases your chances of living another day. This instinct remains today. Even in modern societies, people unconsciously respect authority symbols. Titles, clothing, and possessions are visual cues that signal experience, knowledge, and control. Psychologist Stanley Milgram famously demonstrated this in his obedience experiments in the 1960s. Participants were willing to administer what they thought were painful electric shocks to others simply because a researcher in a lab coat instructed them. The symbol of authority, a white coat, a clipboard, a formal presence, was enough to trigger compliance. Uniforms, clothing that commands credibility. Uniforms are one of the clearest examples of authority symbols. Medical uniforms signal expertise. Patients often trust a doctor or nurse instantly based on clothing, even before they speak. Military or police uniforms signal hierarchy, discipline, and control. People naturally defer to them in situations of stress or uncertainty. Business suits and professional attire convey competence and reliability. This is not about vanity, it's about perception. Our brains interpret uniformed individuals as reliable because history and culture have reinforced these cues. Real-life example. In hospitals, studies show that patients often follow advice more closely when the professional wears a white coat. It's subconscious. The uniform itself builds trust before any words are spoken. Titles. Words that carry weight. Beyond clothing, titles are another shortcut. CEO, doctor, professor, officer, captain, these labels instantly create credibility. Think about a meeting where someone introduces themselves as Dr. Emily Carter. Even if you've never met her before, that doctor sparks a mental cue. This person has authority in a subject. Titles act as a cognitive shortcut. Instead of evaluating every word or action, our brains take the title as a signal of competence. This is why people often say, I just trust him because he's a doctor, or she's the CEO, so she must know what she's doing. Case study. A 2011 study asked participants to rate advice given by strangers. When advice came from someone labeled doctor, professor, or engineer, participants were far more likely to follow it, even when the content was identical to advice from someone with no title. Status symbols, the silent language of power. Status symbols are more subtle than uniforms or titles, but just as powerful. Cars, watches, office size, and even posture can act as authority cues. Example. A manager with a corner office and sleek desk may be perceived as more competent and trustworthy than someone with a small cubicle, even if both have identical skills. Status symbols influence trust because humans evolved to quickly assess resources, knowledge, and capability. In ancient times, Recognizing someone's status, like who could lead the hunt or negotiate peace, was essential for survival. Today, we may be less conscious of it, but the effect remains. Mini example. Think about a tech entrepreneur walking on stage at a conference. The expensive suit, polished shoes, and confident stance create an immediate sense of authority, even before a single word is spoken. Storytelling moment. The courtroom effect. In a courtroom, authority symbols are everywhere. Judges wear robes. Lawyers wear suits. Witnesses may dress formally to appear credible. The layout itself, with the judge elevated, reinforces authority. A lawyer once told me, "It's not just what you argue. It's how you appear while arguing." The jury trusts someone who looks and sounds in control. Studies confirm this. Jurors are more likely to trust and believe testimony from individuals who display clear symbols of authority. The dark side, authority shortcuts can mislead. While authority symbols often guide trust accurately, they can also mislead. Scammers may dress as police officers or bank officials to gain compliance. CEOs with flashy status symbols may command respect even if they lack competence. Titles can be misused or inflated to manipulate perception. This is why critical thinking matters. Authority shortcuts are powerful, but they should not replace judgment entirely. Recognize the signal, but verify the substance. Case study. The infamous Enron scandal involved executives who were highly respected and displayed all the symbols of authority. Suits, corner offices, powerful titles, but the company was collapsing behind the scenes. Authority symbols created misplaced trust until it was too late. Why authority shortcuts influence trust. Psychologists explain this through heuristics, mental shortcuts the brain uses to save time and energy. Authority shortcuts allow us to make quick decisions in complex situations. You don't have to analyze every instruction from a doctor. You trust their training. You don't have to question every police order. You assume experience. You don't have to verify every business decision from a CEO. You infer credibility. These shortcuts are efficient, but they rely on the subconscious cues our brains have evolved to recognize. That's why understanding them is crucial. It helps you read signals accurately and leverage them ethically. Practical application. Using symbols of authority ethically. Here's how you can apply these insights in daily life. Leverage subtle authority symbols. Dress appropriately for meetings or presentations. Even small cues like a polished appearance can increase credibility. Use titles responsibly. When introducing yourself, include professional or relevant titles where appropriate. It signals competence without being arrogant. Mind your status cues. Office setup, body posture, and confident gestures all act as signals. Align them with your intended message. Recognize authority in others. Notice uniforms, titles, and symbols around you. They give you clues about who may have relevant knowledge or responsibility. Combine authority with warmth. Authority works best when paired with trust-building behaviors like smiles, eye contact, and active listening. A cold, authoritarian stance may generate compliance but not genuine trust. The mentor's office. I once visited a mentor's office. He was a professor in his 60s, known worldwide. His office reflected authority. Books stacked meticulously, awards on the walls, a polished desk. Yet when he spoke, he leaned forward, smiled, and used gestures that invited conversation. Students felt both respect and comfort. They trusted him, not just because of the symbols around him, but because his authority signals were paired with warmth and engagement. This is the ideal blend. Symbols of authority plus genuine human connection. Conclusion. Authority as a trust amplifier. Authority shortcuts, uniforms, titles, and status symbols are powerful tools in human psychology. They allow brains to make rapid trust decisions in complex environments. But authority alone is not enough. Trust built solely on symbols can mislead, manipulate, or backfire. The most effective approach combines authority with warmth, transparency, and ethical behavior. As we move to the next chapter, we'll dive into another invisible dimension of trust, the role of reciprocity and how giving first can create deep, lasting trust. Just as authority symbols act as shortcuts, Small acts of generosity can serve as powerful trust bridges in relationships. Chapter 7. The Familiarity and Similarity Effect. Why we trust people like us, shared values, backgrounds, and culture. The comfort of like me. Imagine you're at a networking event. Across the room, someone starts talking. Instantly, you feel a sense of ease. Maybe they went to the same university, grew up in your hometown, or share your taste in music. Without knowing much else, you find yourself nodding, smiling, and believing their words. This isn't magic, it's psychology. Humans are wired to trust people who seem familiar or similar to us. When someone reflects our own values, experiences, or appearance, our brain interprets them as safe and reliable. We call this the familiarity and similarity effect. In this chapter, we'll explore why this effect is so powerful, how it shapes friendships, business, and negotiations, and how you can harness it ethically to build genuine trust. Why similarity breeds trust. The brain's shortcut to safety. From an evolutionary standpoint, humans survived by staying close to their own group, people who looked, acted, or thought like them. Shared experiences and habits signaled safety. If they are like me, they follow the same rules and we won't harm each other. Today, the same instincts guide social interactions. Even in complex societies, familiarity and similarity act as mental shortcuts. Our brains quickly assess, is this person part of my tribe? Can I rely on them? Familiarity, the mere exposure effect. Psychologists call one aspect of this the mere exposure effect. Simply seeing someone repeatedly, even without deep interaction, increases our comfort level and trust. For instance, think about colleagues in an office. You may not know every detail about them, but the fact that you see them daily builds an unconscious trust. Advertisers exploit this too. Repeated exposure to a product or brand makes it feel familiar, and we are more likely to trust and buy it. Case study. In a classic experiment, participants were shown a set of faces. Faces that appeared more frequently, even briefly, were consistently rated as more trustworthy than unfamiliar faces. Our brains love familiarity, it's comforting, and it signals safety. Similarity, mirroring values and experiences. Familiarity is about repeated exposure. Similarity is about shared traits and values. Cultural similarity. People from the same region or cultural background often understand each other's norms and expectations, creating instant trust. Shared interests or hobbies. A fellow music lover, runner, or foodie can feel like a natural ally. Life experiences. Parents tend to connect easily with other parents because shared experiences foster empathy. Similarity triggers the brain's reward centers. When someone reflects our values, dopamine, our feel-good chemical, is released. We literally feel good around people like us, and that positive feeling translates to trust. Mini example. Think of meeting a new neighbor and realizing they love the same hiking trail you frequent. Instantly, you feel comfortable sharing stories, advice, or even lending a hand. The similarity acts as a trust amplifier. The job interview. Consider a job interview. Two candidates are equally qualified, but one shares small details with the hiring manager. They went to the same college, attended the same summer program, or grew up in the same city. Research shows that this candidate is often perceived as more trustworthy and fit for the company. The hiring manager's brain automatically creates a bond, even if unconsciously. Similarity doesn't replace merit, but it tilts perception in favor of the familiar. Familiarity in media and marketing. The power of familiarity is everywhere in media. TV shows, social media personalities, and advertisers use repeated exposure to build trust. You may not know a YouTuber personally, but after watching several videos, their face and voice feel familiar, and we begin to trust their opinions. Brands use this principle too. Repeated exposure to logos, slogans, and jingles makes consumers feel a product is reliable. Familiarity isn't blind trust. It's an evolutionary shortcut that signals predictability, cultural and value alignment. Beyond surface-level similarities, shared values are a deeper layer of trust. People naturally trust those whose morals, ethics, or priorities align with their own. Example. A nonprofit volunteer is more likely to trust a fellow volunteer who also prioritizes social impact. In politics, voters are more inclined to trust candidates who reflect their core beliefs. Shared values reduce the cognitive load of evaluating every statement. Our brain interprets alignment as a shortcut to reliability. Case study. In a study on online communities, participants rated posts from users with shared interests as more trustworthy, even when the content was identical to posts from strangers. Shared values alone created a trust bond, when familiarity and similarity can mislead. While the effect is powerful, it can also create bias. Over-trusting familiar faces. People sometimes trust those they see frequently, even if their credibility is low. Echo chambers. Similarity can reinforce beliefs and create blind spots, reducing critical thinking. Prejudice. Favoring similarity can lead to unfair exclusion of those who are different but equally trustworthy. Understanding this effect helps you recognize both its advantages and potential pitfalls. Trusting similar people is natural, but awareness prevents bias from undermining fairness or judgment. Practical application. Building trust through familiarity and similarity. Here's how you can use this effect ethically and effectively. Highlight shared experiences. In conversations or networking, mention common experiences naturally. I also love that trail, or I grew up nearby. Shared points foster connection. Create repeated exposure. Frequent, consistent interaction builds familiarity. In professional or personal contexts, regular communication signals reliability and comfort. Align values. Emphasize shared principles without exaggeration. In teams, clarifying mutual goals strengthens trust. Mirror subtle traits. Matching communication style, tone, or pace can create a subconscious sense of similarity. Avoid overdoing it, it must feel natural. Leverage storytelling. Personal stories that reflect relatable experiences build trust. When others see themselves in your story, familiarity and similarity trigger an instant bond. The travel connection. A traveler once told me about a chance encounter in a foreign country. She struck up a conversation with a local and immediately noticed shared interests: hiking, coffee, and a love for local music. Within minutes, she felt comfortable asking for directions, recommendations, and even help navigating the city. She later reflected, "It wasn't just politeness. We trusted each other because we were, in many ways, alike." Familiarity and shared interests made the difference. This is the essence of the familiarity and similarity effect. Small commonalities create big trust bridges. Case study: team dynamics. In corporate teams, similarity in work styles and values can accelerate trust and collaboration. Teams with aligned values report faster decision-making, higher cohesion, and less internal conflict. However, diversity remains crucial. While similarity fosters quick trust, diversity drives innovation. The key is balancing both. Use similarity to establish initial trust, then leverage differences for creative problem solving. The invisible thread of connection. Familiarity and similarity are invisible threads that connect people. They allow trust to form quickly, often before a word is spoken or a fact verified. Repeated exposure, shared experiences, and aligned values all signal safety and reliability to our brains. But remember, these shortcuts work best when paired with authenticity and ethical awareness. Trust built on superficial similarity without substance is fragile. Genuine connection blends familiarity with competence, warmth, and integrity. As we move to the next chapter, we'll explore the power of reciprocity, how giving first and offering value creates deep, lasting trust. Like familiarity and similarity, reciprocity taps into fundamental human psychology, but it adds an actionable layer: influence through generosity. Chapter 8: The Vulnerability Paradox. How showing weakness builds strength in trust. The psychology of openness and honesty. Strength in openness. Imagine a leader stepping onto a stage and saying, "I don't have all the answers. I've made mistakes, and I'm still learning." A hush falls over the audience. Instead of appearing weak, this person suddenly feels human, relatable, and trustworthy. People lean in, nod, and pay attention. This is the paradox of vulnerability. In a world that often glorifies strength, confidence, and control, showing weakness can actually increase trust. It signals honesty, authenticity, and emotional courage. In this chapter, we'll explore why vulnerability builds trust, how humans respond to openness, and how to use this paradox ethically in relationships, leadership, and everyday interactions. The psychology of vulnerability. Vulnerability as a social signal. Evolutionarily, humans survived by forming strong social bonds. Group cohesion meant protection, shared resources, and collective problem solving. Vulnerability, admitting uncertainty, asking for help, or showing emotion, was a signal of trustworthiness. It said, "I trust you enough to reveal myself as I am." Modern psychology confirms this. Neuroscientists have found that when someone expresses genuine vulnerability, it activates empathy circuits in observers' brains. We respond not with judgment, but with connection. It's an unconscious recognition. The person is real, human, and safe to trust. The paradox, weakness builds strength. Why does admitting weakness increase trust? It taps into several psychological principles. Authenticity. People instinctively detect fakeness. Perfection or overconfidence can trigger suspicion. Admitting flaws signals honesty. Reciprocity, vulnerability encourages others to open up. When someone shares struggles, we often feel compelled to share ours, creating mutual trust. Courage and integrity, admitting mistakes requires emotional bravery. Observers perceive this as strength, not weakness. Mini example. Think of a manager saying, "I don't have all the solutions, but I want us to figure this out together." Team members often respect and trust this manager more than one who pretends to know everything. Openness in everyday life. Vulnerability isn't just for leaders. It applies in daily interactions. Personal relationships. Sharing feelings, disappointments, or fears deepens intimacy. Friendship. Admitting uncertainty or mistakes signals reliability and honesty. Workplace trust. Confessing a small error early can prevent larger problems and foster collaboration. Example. A friend says, "I'm really stressed about this presentation. I'm not sure I can do it." Instead of seeing weakness, you feel empathy and offer support. This builds deeper trust than if they had pretended everything was fine. The startup founder. Consider a startup founder presenting to investors. Instead of only highlighting successes, she admits, "We faced failures in our first product launch, and we learned hard lessons." Investors, surprisingly, lean in. Her vulnerability signals honesty and growth. They trust her more because she doesn't hide reality. Several of them later invested, citing her openness as a key factor. This demonstrates the paradox. Admitting imperfection increased credibility. Vulnerability and emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is closely linked to trust. Those who can express vulnerability effectively demonstrate self-awareness and empathy. They are perceived as trustworthy because they understand both their own limitations and the feelings of others. Case study. In a study of healthcare professionals, doctors who showed empathy and admitted uncertainty in diagnoses were rated as more trustworthy by patients than those who projected complete certainty. Even when the certain doctors were correct more often, patients valued honesty and connection over perceived perfection. Cultural contexts and vulnerability. It's important to recognize that the impact of vulnerability varies culturally. In many Western societies, openness about feelings and struggles is increasingly normalized and builds trust. However, in highly hierarchical or collectivist cultures, excessive personal vulnerability may be misinterpreted as incompetence. Understanding context is key. The goal isn't to overshare indiscriminately. It's to communicate genuine human experience in ways that enhance connection. When vulnerability can backfire. Not all vulnerability increases trust. Misapplied, it can reduce credibility or create discomfort. Oversharing. Revealing too much too soon can overwhelm or alienate others. Strategic vulnerability. Pretending to be weak for manipulation undermines trust once discovered. Repeated failure without accountability. Admitting mistakes without learning signals incompetence, not authenticity. Rule of thumb. Vulnerability builds trust when it is authentic, measured, and paired with accountability. Practical application: harnessing the vulnerability paradox. Here's how to apply this psychology in daily life. Admit small mistakes early. Confessing minor errors builds credibility. People trust those who acknowledge imperfection. Share learning experiences. Talk about challenges you faced and what you learned. This frames vulnerability as growth, not weakness. Express genuine emotions. Don't suppress feelings. Saying, "I'm nervous about this meeting," invites empathy and connection. Encourage reciprocal sharing. When you show vulnerability, create a safe space for others to do the same. Mutual openness strengthens trust bonds. Balance vulnerability with competence. Show honesty about limitations, but also demonstrate your commitment to solutions and accountability. The mentor's confession. I once observed a seasoned mentor speak to a group of young entrepreneurs. He began by admitting, "I've failed more times than I can count, and many of those failures cost me dearly. But I learned lessons that no textbook could teach me." Instead of diminishing his authority, the room leaned in. People trusted him more deeply because he was real. His vulnerability became a bridge, connecting experience with empathy, and students left inspired and attentive. Case study: therapy and vulnerability. Therapists often encourage clients to embrace vulnerability. Expressing fears, insecurities, and failures in a safe setting builds trust between client and therapist. Trust, in turn, is the foundation of effective treatment. The same principle applies outside therapy. When you safely share human weaknesses, it fosters deeper relational bonds. The paradox is that strength emerges from openness. The courage to be real. The vulnerability paradox teaches us a fundamental truth. Humans trust those who are real, not perfect. Authentic openness signals honesty, fosters empathy, and creates deep relational bonds. Showing vulnerability is not weakness, it is strength. It invites connection, encourages reciprocity, and allows trust to flourish. The next time you hesitate to admit a mistake or reveal uncertainty, remember, transparency builds bridges that polished perfection cannot. As we move to the next chapter, we'll explore the role of consistency and trust, how predictable actions and integrity over time cement the bonds we begin with vulnerability. Just as openness initiates trust, reliability sustains it. Chapter 9: The Storytelling Advantage. Why stories create deeper trust than facts, a narrative persuasion in daily life. The magnetic pull of stories. Imagine this: you're at a dinner party. Someone begins, "When I was 10, I got lost in the city for hours." Instantly, your attention sharpens. Facts alone, statistics about lost children, wouldn't grab you like this. But a story pulls you in. You feel the fear, the relief, the lessons learned. You trust the storyteller because they've shared a human experience, not just information. Stories are the brain's natural language. Humans have been telling stories for thousands of years, not just to entertain, but to teach, persuade, and build trust. Facts inform, but stories connect. They touch emotions, shape perceptions, and create bonds that raw data cannot. In this chapter, we'll uncover why storytelling is one of the most powerful tools for trust building, how narratives shape our decisions, and how you can ethically use stories to deepen connection in everyday life. Why stories build trust. The brain responds to stories. Neuroscience reveals something remarkable. When we hear a story, our brains mirror the experiences being described. Listening to someone's journey activates the same areas in our brains as if we were experiencing it ourselves. Hearing about a person's joy lights up areas associated with happiness. Hearing about fear triggers our own threat response. We process characters' intentions and choices as if they were real. This neurological response creates empathy, a key ingredient in trust. When someone tells a story, they're not just transmitting information, they're inviting us into their world. Example: think about TED Talks. Presenters often begin with personal stories before diving into facts. The story hooks the audience, creating trust and attention, making the subsequent information far more persuasive. Facts versus stories: why emotion wins. Facts are processed logically. They inform. Stories are processed emotionally. They connect. Consider this scenario. A public health campaign wants people to adopt seatbelt use. Two approaches. Fact-based. Seatbelts reduce fatalities by 45%. Story-based. Emily, a mother of two, survived a car crash because her seatbelt saved her life. She now campaigns to ensure every driver buckles up. Research shows the story-based approach is far more effective. The audience doesn't just understand the statistic, they feel it. They trust Emily's message because her lived experience validates it. This principle applies in daily life. Stories build emotional resonance, making messages memorable and trustworthy. The mechanics of narrative persuasion. Psychologists identify several reasons why storytelling is persuasive. Identification, we see ourselves in the characters. Shared experiences increase trust. Suspense, unfolding events keep our attention. Predictable facts rarely do this. Causal connections, stories show cause and effect. We understand why decisions matter. Moral lessons, stories naturally communicate values, aligning our judgment with the storytellers. Mini example. A friend recounts a time they confronted a difficult conversation at work. You not only understand their point, you feel their hesitation, courage, and resolution. By the story's end, you trust their perspective more than a bullet point summary of workplace communication strategies. Storytelling in professional settings. Stories aren't just for entertainment, they're essential for leadership, marketing, and negotiation. Leaders inspire trust by sharing their journeys, setbacks, and growth. Employees feel invested in authentic stories rather than polished statements. Marketers use customer testimonials and narratives to create credibility and emotional engagement. Negotiators frame proposals as stories, illustrating benefits and consequences through relatable scenarios. Case study. In a sales experiment, participants exposed to a narrative testimonial were significantly more likely to purchase a product than participants exposed only to statistical data. The story created trust and personal connection, bridging skepticism. Storytelling and memory. Humans remember stories far better than facts. The fact may fade, but a story sticks. Why? Stories create a mental simulation of events. The brain encodes narrative details more richly than isolated numbers. Example. Teachers often use historical anecdotes to help students remember complex events. Instead of memorizing dates, students remember the human experiences behind history. The story creates retention and trust in the teacher's expertise. Storytelling in personal relationships. In everyday life, stories strengthen bonds. Sharing personal experiences invites vulnerability and authenticity. Friends who share their struggles or triumphs foster empathy and trust. Couples who recount meaningful memories deepen emotional intimacy. Parents using stories to teach lessons engage children's attention and model values more effectively than abstract rules. Mini example. A mentor shares a story of a career failure and the lessons learned. Mentors not only absorb wisdom, they trust the mentor's guidance because it is grounded in lived experience. The dark side, manipulative storytelling. While stories can build trust, they can also manipulate. A compelling narrative may overshadow facts, creating emotional bias. Exaggerated tales can mislead, creating false trust. Selective storytelling may hide crucial details, presenting an incomplete picture. Over-reliance on narrative can make listeners trust style over substance. Critical thinking is essential. Stories are tools, powerful ones, but must be paired with transparency and honesty to cultivate genuine trust. Practical application. Using storytelling to build trust. Here's how to ethically leverage stories in daily life. Start with personal experiences. Share real-life examples to illustrate points. Authenticity matters more than perfection. Use relatable characters. Choose stories with people or scenarios your audience can identify with. This increases empathy and trust. Include challenges and resolutions. Stories with conflict and resolution are more engaging and persuasive than simple success narratives. Connect stories to values. Highlight lessons, morals, or takeaways that align with shared beliefs or goals. Balance emotion and information. Facts support stories. Emotion connects. Together, they maximize trust and retention. Keep it concise and purposeful. Avoid long-winded stories that dilute the message. Each story should have a clear point. The volunteer experience. I once met a volunteer who shared her experience during a disaster relief mission. She described the fear, exhaustion, and moments of unexpected kindness. Instead of listing statistics about relief efforts, her story drew listeners in. By the end, everyone in the room trusted her expertise, empathized with her journey, and felt inspired to help themselves. The narrative created trust in a way that facts alone could never achieve. Storytelling in leadership. Effective leaders understand that facts may inform, but stories inspire and build relational trust. Example: a CEO facing a company crisis begins a town hall by recounting a personal mistake early in their career, the lessons learned, and how those lessons inform current decisions. Employees respond with understanding, confidence, and trust. The leader's story bridges the gap between authority and relatability. Science-backed evidence. Studies in psychology and neuroscience support storytelling as a trust-building tool. fMRI scans show that hearing stories activate sensory and emotional areas of the brain. We experience the narrative. Experiments reveal that messages delivered as stories are more persuasive and memorable than statistical arguments. Narrative-based interventions in education, marketing, and healthcare improve comprehension, adherence, and engagement, indicators of trust. These findings confirm what humans have intuitively known for millennia. Stories matter more than facts when it comes to connection and trust. The trust-building power of stories. Stories are more than entertainment, they are social glue. They create empathy, activate emotions, and make abstract ideas tangible. By connecting facts to human experiences, stories build trust in ways statistics alone cannot. But storytelling must be ethical. Authenticity, transparency, and relevance are key. Misused stories may mislead and erode trust, while honest, purposeful narratives can inspire, persuade, and deepen relationships. Chapter 10: The Dark Side of Trust. Scams, manipulation, and false trust signals. How con artists exploit human psychology. When trust becomes a weapon. Picture this. You receive an email from someone claiming to be a long-lost relative with an urgent need for money. Your heart races, empathy kicks in, and you feel compelled to help. But it's a trap. The sender is a con artist, exploiting your natural inclination to trust. Trust is a powerful glue that binds human relationships, but that very power makes it vulnerable to abuse. Scams, manipulation, and deceit are built on the human tendency to believe, connect, and act on trust, even when it's undeserved. In this chapter, we'll explore the dark side of trust, how fraudsters and manipulators exploit psychological shortcuts, the tactics they use, and how to recognize and defend against them. Understanding this shadowy side is essential to protect yourself while still cultivating healthy, genuine trust in others. The psychology of deception. Why we are vulnerable. Humans are wired to trust because it has historically promoted survival and cooperation. Our brains evolved to favor cooperation over suspicion because collaboration in groups increased chances of survival. This evolutionary advantage, however, comes with a cost. Our tendency to trust quickly can be exploited. Con artists know that most people will default to believing others, especially when emotional triggers are present. Psychologist Robert Cialdini calls this persuasion, setting up a context where people are more likely to say yes before the request is even made. Con artists intuitively master this principle. Common manipulation tactics. Con artists, scammers, and manipulators rely on predictable psychological patterns. Some of the most common tactics include reciprocity abuse. Humans feel obligated to return favors. Scammers may offer a small gift, help, or sympathy, triggering the urge to reciprocate. Authority exploitation. People trust figures with perceived authority. Fake officials, executives, or experts use uniforms, titles, or professional jargon to create credibility. Scarcity and urgency. Creating pressure makes people act without thinking. You have 24 hours to claim this prize exploits fear of missing out. Social proof manipulation. Displaying fake testimonials, reviews, or followers creates a sense of credibility. People trust what others appear to trust. Similarity and familiarity. Scammers mirror language, values, or experiences to appear relatable. This taps into the same psychology we explored in Chapter 7. Mini example. A romance scammer may adopt shared hobbies, interests, or even hometown details to create an illusion of connection. Over weeks or months, they build trust carefully only to exploit it later. Case study: the classic advance fee scam. Consider the classic Nigerian prince email. Victims are promised a large sum of money, but first, they must pay a processing fee. Why does it work? The scam exploits multiple trust triggers. Reciprocity. The promise of wealth creates a sense of obligation. Authority. The sender presents themselves as a royal figure. Scarcity. Urgency is emphasized. If you don't act fast, the opportunity disappears. Familiarity. Personalized emails and references to local details create a sense of connection. Despite the story being improbable, it succeeds because it manipulates our psychological shortcuts, not rational analysis. Emotional exploitation. Con artists don't rely on intellect, they exploit emotions. Fear, greed, love, and sympathy are common levers. Fear, threats of legal action or financial loss push people to act impulsively. Greed, promises of extraordinary returns override skepticism. Love, romance scams manipulate desire for connection. Sympathy, heart-wrenching stories of tragedy or misfortune can disarm critical thinking. Real-life example. In 2019, an elderly woman lost hundreds of thousands to a scammer posing as her grandson. Emotional cues, urgency, and familiarity overrode her rational thinking. The lesson: trust without verification can be exploited, especially when emotions are involved. Signals of false trust. Detecting deception requires awareness of psychological red flags. Too much too soon. Rapid intimacy or oversharing can be a tactic to build false trust. Pressure to act quickly. Urgency often signals manipulation. Trustworthy interactions rarely force hasty decisions. Inconsistencies and contradictions. Stories that change, details that don't match, or explanations that feel rehearsed are warning signs. Excessive flattery. Manipulators often compliment excessively to lower defenses. Requests for secrecy. If someone insists on keeping interactions secret, it's a major red flag. Mini example. A scammer posing as a tech support agent may insist, "Don't tell anyone. Your computer will be hacked otherwise." Secrecy isolates victims and prevents verification. The con artist's mind. Imagine a skilled con artist as a storyteller, but one who tells carefully crafted lies. Every word is chosen to exploit emotions. Every pause designed to create urgency. Every detail selected to mimic familiarity. Their audience, the target, feels compelled to act. Understanding this narrative-driven manipulation helps us see that deception is often a psychological game, not merely a matter of chance. Case study: phishing in the digital age. Email and online scams exploit the same principles. Phishing attacks craft messages that look familiar. They mimic official branding, authority, include names and details to create familiarity, offer urgent solutions to problems that may not exist. Even tech-savvy individuals fall victim because these tactics exploit deeply ingrained trust mechanisms. Practical application. Protecting yourself without becoming cynical. Knowing the dark side of trust isn't about paranoia. It's about discernment. Here's how to protect yourself. Verify before acting. Confirm identities and information independently. Don't rely solely on claims or appearances. Watch emotional triggers. Pause when fear, urgency, or flattery spikes. Take time to think critically. Look for inconsistencies. Cross-check details, dates, and stories. Trust is earned over time, not rushed. Seek external opinions. Discuss unfamiliar situations with trusted friends or professionals. They provide perspective and reduce bias. Educate yourself. Awareness of common scams, social engineering tactics, and psychological manipulation improves resilience. Mini example. Before wiring money or sharing sensitive information, successful targets pause, verify, and consult trusted sources, turning natural trust into informed trust. Learning from a scam. A man shared his story. He received a call claiming to be from his bank. The caller was polite, used technical jargon, and mentioned his city. Familiarity everywhere. He almost shared his password. Then he paused, called the bank directly, and discovered it was a scam. The lesson: awareness and verification transform trust from vulnerability into protection. The same psychological shortcuts that con artists exploit, familiarity, authority, urgency, can be navigated safely with mindfulness. Psychological insight: trust as a tool, not a blind faith. Trust is essential in human life. It allows collaboration, intimacy, and progress. But trust without discernment is dangerous. Con artists succeed not because humans are foolish, but because our brains evolved to trust efficiently. By understanding manipulation tactics, emotional levers, and psychological shortcuts, we can trust wisely, maintaining connection without compromising safety. Conclusion: balancing openness and caution. Trust is powerful, but it has a shadow. Scams, false signals, and manipulative narratives exploit our natural inclination to believe. Yet, awareness doesn't mean shutting down, it means cultivating informed trust. We can still be open, empathetic, and cooperative, but paired with discernment. By recognizing psychological triggers, verifying information, and observing red flags, trust becomes a tool for connection rather than a vulnerability to exploitation. As we move to the next chapter, we'll explore how reputation and long-term behavior cement trust, revealing the mechanics of trust that go beyond first impressions, vulnerability, and stories. Consistency in actions ensures that trust is lasting, not fleeting. Chapter 11: Building Lasting Trust. From first impressions to long-term credibility, key habits that strengthen trust over time. Trust that stands the test of time. Imagine meeting someone new. Their smile feels genuine, their handshake firm, and their words confident. You instinctively trust them at least a little. That's the power of first impressions. But now imagine knowing that person for years. They've consistently shown honesty, kept promises, and supported you through challenges. That trust isn't just instant, it's enduring. Building lasting trust is like cultivating a tree. First impressions are the seed. Consistent actions, integrity, and empathy are the sunlight, water, and soil that help it grow. In this chapter, we'll explore the psychology behind long-term trust, habits that strengthen it, and practical ways to nurture trust in your personal and professional life. By the end, you'll understand not only how trust is formed, but how it can be preserved, reinforced, and made unshakable, even in challenging circumstances. The science of sustained trust. The trust timeline, from instant to enduring. Psychologists often divide trust into two stages. Initial trust, formed in seconds to minutes, based on appearance, behavior, tone, and subtle cues. Enduring trust, developed over months or years, based on consistent behavior, reliability, and integrity. While first impressions can open doors, they rarely create lasting bonds on their own. Long-term credibility relies on repeated, trustworthy actions that align with words. Research shows that people evaluate trustworthiness through patterns. Do actions match promises? Are intentions consistent over time? This pattern recognition is hardwired in our brains, an adaptive mechanism from our ancestral need to know who was reliable in a tribe. Core habits that reinforce trust. Several key behaviors consistently build trust over time. Reliability, following through on commitments, is fundamental. Small actions, like showing up on time or delivering on a promise, reinforce trust steadily. Example: a colleague who consistently meets deadlines earns respect and reliability, trust more than someone who occasionally excels but often disappoints. Transparency, sharing intentions, decisions, and reasoning honestly prevents misunderstandings. Example: a manager explaining why a project change is necessary maintains trust even if the news isn't welcome. Consistency, Behavioral consistency signals predictability and integrity. People trust those whose actions are steady across situations. Competence, demonstrated ability builds confidence. Trust is easier when we believe someone is skilled and capable. Empathy and listening, genuine concern for others' perspectives deepens emotional trust. Example: a friend who remembers your challenges, celebrates your wins, and offers support without judgment earns lasting loyalty. A mentor's credibility. Consider a mentor I once observed. Over 5 years, she guided dozens of students. She never overpromised, always followed up, and admitted mistakes openly. Students trusted her implicitly, not because of charisma or position, but because her actions consistently aligned with her words. The trust she built wasn't fragile. It withstood disagreements, setbacks, and stressful moments. This is the hallmark of lasting trust. Credibility earned through repeated, aligned behavior. The psychology behind long-term trust. Humans are pattern seekers. Our brains track reliability subconsciously. When someone repeatedly meets expectations, our trust circuits reinforce a positive perception. Conversely, repeated disappointments or inconsistencies weaken trust rapidly, even if the initial impression was strong. Neuroscience insight: dopamine responses reinforce behaviors that create positive trust outcomes. When a trustworthy person acts predictably, the brain rewards the observer, strengthening relational bonds. Cognitive bias. The consistency bias encourages us to favor people who act in predictable, reliable ways, making them appear more trustworthy over time. Trust in professional settings. In work environments, lasting trust is critical. Employees, leaders, clients, and collaborators evaluate trustworthiness not by words alone, but by patterns of behavior. Leaders. Transparency, fairness, and consistency in decisions inspire long-term confidence. Teams. Meeting commitments, respecting deadlines, and supporting peers builds cohesive trust. Clients/customers. Reliable delivery, open communication, and ethical practices reinforce brand trust. Case study. A software company that consistently delivered projects on time, openly communicated challenges, and admitted mistakes built a loyal client base. Competitors with flashier marketing but inconsistent service struggled to maintain credibility. The role of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, EQ, plays a crucial role in sustaining trust. People who regulate emotions, empathize effectively, and communicate with clarity strengthen relational bonds. Self-awareness. Recognizing your strengths, weaknesses, and emotional triggers helps prevent behaviors that erode trust. Empathy. Understanding others' feelings fosters connection and loyalty. Social skills. Resolving conflicts constructively maintains trust even during disagreements. Mini example. 2 managers handle a conflict differently. One dismisses concerns and deflects blame, while the other listens, validates feelings, and finds a fair resolution. The second manager preserves and even strengthens trust, demonstrating the power of EQ in long-term credibility. The lifelong friend. I once observed 2 friends over decades. Despite occasional disagreements, one consistently demonstrated loyalty, remembering birthdays, offering support during crises, and maintaining honesty. Even when life circumstances tested their bond, trust remained resilient. The key lesson: trust isn't a one-time gift, it's a daily practice. Each action, small or large, contributes to a cumulative perception of reliability and integrity. Practical application. Nurturing trust daily. Building lasting trust requires intentional habits. Keep promises, big and small. Every commitment fulfilled reinforces credibility. Missing small promises often damages trust more than occasional big failures. Communicate openly. Share decisions, motives, and reasoning. Even difficult news delivered transparently strengthens trust. Admit mistakes. Acknowledging errors honestly signals integrity and fosters respect. Be predictable, not rigid. Consistency matters, but adaptability shows competence without eroding trust. Invest in relationships. Spend time understanding others' needs, celebrate successes, and support them during challenges. Align actions with values. Integrity is strengthened when behavior reflects stated beliefs. Mini example. A project manager consistently communicated updates, acknowledged errors, and supported the team under pressure. Over months, team trust deepened. Members became proactive, collaborative, and loyal. Trust across contexts, personal and professional. While the principles are universal, context shapes application. Personal life. Small acts of reliability, honesty, and empathy build enduring friendships, romantic relationships, and family bonds. Professional life. Transparency, competence, fairness, and ethical practices create credibility that lasts beyond a single project or transaction. Storytelling moment. A small business owner maintained integrity by honoring every order, promptly addressing complaints, and treating employees respectfully. Even in tough financial times, loyalty and trust remained high, proving that consistent, ethical action has long-term payoff. The long-term payoff. Trust compounds over time. Relationships, collaborations, and reputation strengthen as consistent behavior accumulates. Conversely, trust can erode quickly when actions contradict words or ethical standards are compromised. Trust as currency. In personal and professional life, trust functions like a long-term investment. Consistent deposits of integrity, reliability, and empathy create strong returns. Repairing broken trust. Rebuilding trust after a breach is possible, but requires acknowledgement, accountability, and sustained effort. Restoration is often slower than initial building. Conclusion. Trust as a lifelong practice. Trust isn't a gift that can be given once and assumed permanent. It's cultivated, nurtured, and maintained through consistent behavior, integrity, transparency, and empathy. First impressions may spark initial belief, but lasting trust is earned through habitual actions that align with values and promises. As we prepare to conclude this journey on trust, the final chapter will explore trust in a complex world, how to balance openness with discernment, build networks of reliable relationships, and navigate the interplay of vulnerability and caution. Trust, when nurtured thoughtfully, becomes both a shield and a bridge, enabling connection, collaboration, and lasting human bonds. Chapter 12. Mastering the Trust Trigger. Practical steps to apply trust psychology in life, using trust for leadership, business, and relationships. Trust as a superpower. Imagine walking into a room where everyone listens to you, not because of authority alone, but because they genuinely trust you. You speak and people respond with openness. You make decisions and they follow without hesitation. You offer help and they believe in your sincerity. This is the power of trust, not blind belief, but earned credibility. By now, you've learned about the psychology of first impressions, body language, vulnerability, stories, and the dark side of misplaced trust. In this final chapter, we take all those insights and show how to apply them intentionally to master trust in every area of life. Leadership, business, friendships, and family. Trust is a skill. Like any skill, it can be practiced, refined, and wielded responsibly to strengthen relationships and achieve meaningful influence. The mechanics of mastering trust. 1. Building the foundation. Self-awareness. Before you can inspire trust in others, you must understand yourself. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of credible trust. Ask yourself, what are my core values? Where do I tend to overpromise or underdeliver? How do my actions align with my words? Psychological research shows that people are drawn to individuals whose words, actions, and intentions are aligned. Misalignment creates cognitive dissonance in observers. They may sense dishonesty or inconsistency, even if subtle. Mini example. A manager constantly praises teamwork, but privately criticizes team members for mistakes. Employees notice the gap, and trust erodes, regardless of the manager's intentions. Practical tip. Keep a journal of commitments and follow through consistently. Reflect weekly. Did my actions match my promises? Awareness builds credibility. 2. The power of first impressions revisited. While long-term trust matters most, first impressions still set the stage. Key elements: body language, posture, open gestures, eye contact, tone of voice, calm, confident, and empathetic. Facial expressions, genuine smiles and attentive expressions. Mini example: imagine meeting a new business partner. You nod, maintain eye contact, and listen more than you speak. Your openness signals reliability and creates a positive first impression that supports ongoing trust. Practical tip: practice a trust-ready introduction. Observe yourself in mirrors or recordings to refine gestures, tone, and expressions. 3. Storytelling, making trust memorable. Stories are not just entertaining, they are trust accelerators. When people hear a personal narrative that demonstrates honesty, resilience, or values in action, they connect emotionally. Share experiences that show growth from mistakes. Highlight moments of ethical decision-making. Use analogies and metaphors to make abstract concepts tangible. Case study: a leader in a tech company shared how a failed product launch taught her the value of transparency. By narrating her mistake and the lessons learned, she reinforced her credibility. Employees trusted her more because she modeled vulnerability and integrity. Practical tip: in conversations, meetings, or presentations, incorporate at least one personal story that aligns with your values. This builds emotional trust and makes you relatable. 4. Leveraging consistency and reliability. Trust is cumulative. Actions repeated over time reinforce credibility. Key principles: follow through on commitments. Even small promises matter. Predictable behavior: people feel secure when they can anticipate your reactions. Visible reliability: make your consistency noticeable, not boastful. Mini example: a small business owner delivers orders promptly, responds politely to complaints, and consistently thanks customers. Over time, these small, reliable behaviors establish brand trust that exceeds any advertising campaign. Practical tip: use reminders, checklists, or project management tools to maintain follow-through. Reliability is often invisible until broken. Prevent gaps proactively. 5. Ethical influence, trust without manipulation. Mastering trust isn't about exploiting psychology, it's about ethical influence. Use insights responsibly, avoid pressure tactics or deception. Build influence through transparency, empathy, and credibility. Encourage informed decisions rather than blind compliance. Mini example: a mentor asks mentors for input on decisions, explains the reasoning behind guidance, and supports autonomy. This approach creates trust-based influence rather than fear or obligation-based compliance. Practical tip: when presenting ideas or making requests, ask, am I giving them enough information to make an informed choice? 6. Trust in leadership. In leadership, trust is currency. People follow leaders they believe in, not just those with authority. Principles for leaders: transparency, share the rationale behind decisions. Consistency, treat all team members fairly. Empathy, understand individual needs, motivations, and concerns. Recognition, acknowledge contributions and mistakes openly. Case study: a hospital director during a crisis consistently communicated updates, admitted unknowns honestly, and praised staff for efforts. Staff reported feeling safe, supported, and motivated, demonstrating that trust drives engagement and performance. Practical tip: schedule regular check-ins to communicate honestly, listen actively, and recognize contributions. Leadership trust grows with visible, ethical actions over time. 7. Trust in business and negotiation. In business, trust accelerates decisions, reduces friction, and strengthens partnerships. Key tactics: clear contracts and agreements. Transparency reduces ambiguity. Reliability in commitments. Meet deadlines, deliver quality, and honor terms. Consistent communication. Keep stakeholders informed regularly. Mini example: two companies collaborating on a joint venture maintain daily updates, share setbacks honestly, and honor small deliverables. Trust grows, enabling faster approvals, smoother negotiations, and long-term partnership stability. Practical tip: document commitments clearly and communicate proactively. Trust grows not only from results but from the perception of reliability. 8. Trust in personal relationships. Long-term relationships, friendships, family, and romantic partnerships rely on trust as much as affection. Habits that reinforce trust include keeping promises and showing up consistently, listening actively and validating feelings, apologizing sincerely when mistakes occur, sharing experiences and vulnerabilities. Mini story: a couple faced a financial crisis. One partner admitted anxiety and sought help openly, while the other responded with support rather than judgment. Their honesty and responsiveness strengthened trust, deepening emotional connection. Practical tip: make trust-building small daily rituals, checking in, sharing thoughts, and acknowledging feelings. Long-term habits outweigh dramatic gestures. 9. Guarding against misplaced trust. Even when mastering trust, discernment is critical. Remember the lessons from Chapter 10, The Dark Side of Trust. Verify before fully committing in unfamiliar situations. Observe consistency over time before deep emotional or financial investment. Maintain boundaries to prevent exploitation. Mini example: an entrepreneur meets a potential investor who seems perfect. By verifying background, checking references, and observing behavior over months, the entrepreneur builds trust safely rather than rushing into a risky deal. Practical tip: combine openness with healthy skepticism. Trust wisely. Don't trust blindly. Trust as a lifelong practice. I once followed a nonprofit founder over a decade. She consistently treated donors, volunteers, and employees with honesty, transparency, and empathy. When challenges arose, she admitted errors, communicated openly, and upheld commitments. Her network of trust became a resilient ecosystem. Volunteers stayed loyal, donors contributed generously, and employees supported each other. Trust, cultivated thoughtfully over years, became both a shield and a bridge, enabling extraordinary collaboration and impact. Practical application: your trust action plan. Audit your current relationships, identify where trust is strong and where it needs repair. Commit to consistency, set realistic commitments, and follow through reliably. Tell authentic stories, share experiences that reveal values and integrity. Communicate transparently, explain decisions, admit uncertainties, and seek feedback. Practice empathy daily. Listen actively, validate feelings, and respond with care. Observe and verify, apply discernment to protect yourself from misplaced trust. Reflect and refine, regularly review actions and their alignment with your values. By integrating these steps into daily life, trust becomes a strategic, yet authentic, tool. A skill that enhances influence, deepens relationships, and cultivates long-term credibility. Conclusion: trust as your most valuable asset. Mastering trust is the culmination of a journey that starts with understanding first impressions, body language, vulnerability, storytelling, and ethical influence. Trust is both an art and a science, shaped by actions, consistency, empathy, and communication. Whether in leadership, business, or personal life, trust is the bridge between intention and impact. Applied ethically, it opens doors, strengthens relationships, and creates networks of reliability and collaboration. Remember, trust is a living skill. It grows when nurtured, deepens with consistency, and strengthens every connection it touches. Use it wisely, ethically, and intentionally, because mastery of trust is not just about being believed, it's about inspiring belief in others while honoring your integrity.